Okay, so hello everybody. In this workshop for GDYU, we're going to be learning how to 3D model your first 3D model in Blender. We're hopefully going to be making something that looks a bit like this plane here. This is in a kind of low poly stylized art style, and we're hopefully going to be able to make this. So let's get started here. So hopefully you have installed Blender. If you haven't, you can go to blender.org. And you should be able to just go to download Blender 4.0 is the version we're going to be using. Download, and you should just be able to click this button. If not, you might have to find the exact version for whatever platform you're using. Should be able to download that. You should be able to run the installer, and it should look something like this when you run it the first time. There'll probably be a window pop up here asking you some questions, and the main one that we want to just note is, you don't have to do this, this is just because I've already installed it, is key map. Is one of the questions it'll ask you is how you want to select with your mouse button, left or right. I think the default is now left. I have it set to right because I'm used to that. It's the old default. So you can either choose left or right. Left is probably more intuitive for people nowadays. And the other one is spacebar action. I don't know what the default is now, but if it's not search, I would set it to search because you're going to be searching a lot more than clicking play if that is the default now. All right, so just take note of what your hotkeys are for this because they may be different from mine. Otherwise, for any other keys, you can see right now I'm holding the middle mouse button. Left click, right click. They'll show up in the bottom left here. I'm just screwing everything up here, but so you'll be able to, while during this workshop, be able to see what keys I'm pressing in the bottom left here if I don't mention it verbally. So yeah, awesome. So let's just get started here. So you'll have that pop up, and it'll, let's just make a new one here. Don't save. And you should be able to just click New Project General, and if not, you can go File, New General, and it should look something like this with the default cube in the middle. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're actually going to save the project so we don't lose any of our progress. So we're going to do File in the top left, Save As, and we're going to give it a name. So I'm going to give it GDYU Workshop stop blend, save as. All right, so now we're saved, and now just, every once in a while click Control S or File Save to make sure that your progress is constantly being saved. Blender shouldn't crash, but just in case. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of explain some of the windows here. There's really only 2 or 3 main windows that we got to worry about. So the first one here, you see I've been moving around in is the viewport. So this is, the area where you're going to actually be interacting with your 3D model and seeing it in 3D space, as you see here. The next one is it's called the outliner window, which is this window right here. Is it called? Yeah, outliner. It's kind of a weird name. And this is kind of like all the objects you have in the scene. So you see if I click on them here, this is the cube, the light in the background, the camera over here. So this just keeps track of all the objects you have in the scene collection. And the next window over here is the properties, properties window. And this just has like all the properties for whatever you have selected. So you see if I have the cube selected, it's got a lot of these properties. Some of these properties I think are actually global. Like for example, the renderer one here is global. But you see some of these ones down here, like material, is based on the object you have selected. For example, the light object has a light property, where the cube doesn't. It has other stuff, like a material property. Yeah, light doesn't have material. So yeah, these are the main windows we'll be using. So yeah, that's what they do. Okay, so some controls. You saw me moving around a bit in the scene here, so how do you actually move around? Again, you can see my controls in the bottom left here as I do it, but you can right click to select, or it might be left click if you pick that. So right click to select things, like the cube or the light, and scroll wheel to zoom in and out. If you have a mouse pad, that might be a bit tricky, so hopefully you have an actual mouse wheel, scroll in and out. Hold middle mouse button to like rotate your camera around wherever the central point of it is. Right now it's right in the middle of the scene. Okay, so that's hold middle mouse button. I'm moving the mouse. And hold shift and middle mouse button to like pan around. And you'll notice this moves my center of my camera. So now I'm rotating around here somewhere. Right, so that's kind of at least how I move around in Blender is I use mainly shift, middle click, and middle click to rotate around. You gotta kind of or mentally keep track of where your pivot is too. Like right now I know my pivot is right about here, and it can get confusing because you can also move it up and down. Right now my pivot's like somewhere up in 3D space. So if you do kind of get lost like this, you can click space, center, center, cursor, frame all, and it should bring you back to the middle somewhere, or view selected will move you in on whatever you have selected. What else? Yeah, I'm clicking space and just searching. Center view to cursor will, sorry, this little like red and white circle thing is the cursor, and I can actually move it by left clicking, or it might be right click if you have it flipped. And so now I'm going to click space and center view to cursor, and now my view is centered right on this cursor. If I want to recenter this cursor, sorry, center. See, like I don't even know all these, so center cursor and frame all will recenter the cursor to the middle. So like in the search menu, you might have to kind of search a keyword and kind of look through the options. And as you use Blender more, you'll kind of learn some of the options. But yeah, okay, so that is controls. Hopefully you're able to move around fine in your Blender scene. Let's now delete the default cube. That's like the first thing you do in Blender usually, because you don't want it. So I have it selected and I click the delete key, delete, and now that default cube is gone bye-bye. And what we're going to do here is we're going to bring in a blueprint to kind of use as reference. Sometimes you could like open images on another monitor and use them as reference. So like, we're going to be making like a World War II, so I would search like fighter plane blue. Oh, I can't type print. And I would look through these blueprints and find one that looks decent. Blueprint is a good keyword because it shows you multiple perspectives, which is good for modeling. Let's search World War II fighter plane blueprint. So like I think one like this is kind of what I grabbed. But anyways, I will link the image we end up using in the description. So we're going to bring it in here because I've already got it downloaded. We're going to go to add in the top left here, image, and believe reference. Yep. And I'm going to get my plain blueprint image here that I already found. And here it is here. It just popped into the scene. And it's got like what the plane looks like from the top, the side, and the front, which is good reference when modeling. Okay, so now it's kind of in a bad spot here. It's like right in the middle of the scene. I actually kind of want to move it a bit off to the side so I can look at it, but it not be in the way of my model. You could actually set it up in a way that it's lined up with each axis of your model, and then you can literally trace it almost with the model, but we're not going to do that for tutorial. We're going to do it freehand. But if you're making a very realistic model, then you might want to actually trace the blueprint to make it look exactly like it, or whatever concept art maybe an artist made for you if you're modeling in a team. Okay, so here is the blueprint here. So what we're going to do here is we're going to kind of fix its position here. So to do that, we're going to open up this item tab here. Hopefully you saw, but there's this little arrow here that you can click on and it pops open this little tab. And this is going to open the uh, some options, and it's got the transform for this object we have selected, which is the blueprint. So right now it's at 0, 0, 0 location, and its rotation is like a weird rotation. So we're going to, I think we can right click on it and reset all to default values. Yeah, okay. And now it's kind of like flat on the ground. We don't want that either. I kind of want it rotated up. So what axis is it here? So X, we want to move it here like 90, so it's straight up and down. And then so rotation X 90, and then location Y, I kind of want to move it like off to the side here, out of the way, or actually let's move it on the X to the side and rotate on the Z 90. There we go. Now it's like off to the side, out of the way, because we're going to make our model right here in the middle. I think I actually want to scale it up as well. Just adjusted the scale there. And the other way you can move stuff is using the actual move tool over here, move, and then it opens as a gizmo. I can move it like this or rotate it like this. I can also use G to move. See, I click G and now I can move it all around, but now it's kind of locked to the perspective of the camera. So what you can do is you can click G and then the axes you want to move on. So I want to move on the X axis, so I click X on the keyboard, and now it's just moving along the X axis. And I can do the same thing for the Y axis. Also note that Z is actually up and down in Blender, not Y. Z and Y are almost flipped. You gotta wrap your head around that. So yeah, so anyways, I got my blueprint kind of off to the side here. Hopefully you're able to do that off to the side. If you're having trouble knowing how far away it is, you can kind of look at these squares here and see I'm like one big square off to the side, or you can look at the actual exact coordinates over here of the location. All right, so now let's get into actually making our model here. So we're going to start with the body plane, like this part right here, this body. So to do that, we're going to bring in our first actual mesh object. So for that, we're going to go to Add, Mesh, and we're going to add a cylinder. Click Cylinder. And before you click anything, in the bottom left here, there's this little Add Cylinder panel. And we're going to modify these are like the settings for like spawning in a new or generating a new mesh, cylinder mesh. We're going to change the vertex count to 10 because we want that kind of low pulley look. So now it has 10 basically edges. Okay, so let's now talk about the edit mode or the different modes. So right now we are in what's called object mode. So in the top left here, this little tab here, you see it says object mode. There's other modes. The two modes that we're going to be using is object mode and edit mode. So object mode is for selecting, all the different objects and moving all the different objects by their origin. But if we go into, click in the top left here, edit mode, now you can see that I'm actually basically just focused in on this one object, and I'm in its edit state where I can edit all the different vertices and edges and faces of this model. And so when you're modeling, you'll be in this mode for most of the time to do proper actual vertex based modeling, which you for the most part should get into to do it the best practice way. So yeah, so these are how you change between your modes. So just be conscious of what mode you're in. You can also use tab to switch between them really quick. I'm just clicking tab on my keyboard. Yeah, okay, so now that we are in edit mode, which you can again notice by in the top left, and you should be able to look at your model and see if there's vertices being shown. That's the best way to know that you're in edit mode. Okay, so what do we got to do here? We got to rotate this cube. So what we're going to do here is now you'll see that we're actually editing individual vertices and stuff. So I'm just moving this vertex around to show. So what I want to do here is I want to actually rotate this entire cylinder on its side, so it's like the body. But to do that, I want to make sure I have all vertices selected. So you could like hold shift, select every vertex, but that would take forever, right? You could box select, which is click B, and then you can click and drag to box select. You could use C, which is like an area select, like that. But the quickest way to select all vertices is to just click A on the keyboard, and you can click A again to unselect. So I'm just, again, clicking A. So we're going to click A, have them all selected, and then what we're going to do is we're going to click R on the keyboard for rotate. You'll notice there's a lot of hotkeys in Blender, and to really get good is you learn how to use the hotkeys. So again, you can see what I'm clicking in the bottom left, and I'll also try and mention it. So I clicked R, and then I want to click Z, and I want to rotate 90 degrees, so I'm typing 90 on my keyboard. Enter. And what that did, if you didn't notice, is it just it changed this vertex here from being pointy to rotate on the Z 90 to now being pointy on the x-axis. Okay. So now I'm going to rotate again, and we want to actually rotate it so it's flat on its belly. So I'm going to rotate Y 90, just like that. And now it's actually flat on, like, sideways, like the body of the plane. And then I'm going to click S for scale and X for the x-axis, and 4 to scale it 4 units on the x. And now it's actually long and skinny, like the body of the plane. All right. So hopefully, you know, you got all those hotkeys. Again, you'll learn those hotkeys, but they're pretty intuitive, right? R for rotate. G for move isn't very intuitive, but G is move. S is scale. And again, it's X, Y, Z for the different axes. So G on the X, G on the Y, G on the Z. And we'll get into how you can do some other fancy stuff like G, Shift, Z, makes it so I can move it on 2 axes, or G, Shift, X, right? Well, in the camera, G, Shift, X moves it on the Z and the Y axes. Yeah, we might use that later, but just showing all the things you can do. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to now we need to kind of split this up so we can modify it better. So for that, we're going to do what's called a loop cut, which is the hotkey for it is Control R, and you see this yellow line shows up, and then you can type 5 on the keyboard, and now it's going to make 5 loop cuts. And you see if I move my mouse on and off of it, it's going to make 5 loop cuts. If I like put my mouse on the edge here, it's going to make 5 loop cuts horizontally for this face, but we actually want to make it vertically across the cylinder like this. So make it look like this, and then you click to lock it in, and click again to lock it in again, and you'll see all these vertices, new vertices and edges showed up. If you kind of moved mid like this, you probably want to Control Z and undo, and do it again. Control R, 5, click, click without moving. I moved there slightly. 5, click, click. There we go. You could move, of course, if you wanted to shift them, but we don't want to shift them yet. Okay, so you'll notice that this is a 3D model, right? So there's vertices on this side of the model and vertices on this side of the model. And sometimes we want to be able to see vertices on the other side of the model to be able to select them. So for that, what we can do is we can go into X-ray mode. So in the top right here, and click Toggle X-ray. And now you can see I can see the vertices and edges and faces through the model, which is really helpful if you want to like select like all these without having to move your camera to this side and this side. All right, but okay, cool. So now what we want to do is we want to basically make this look like the body of a plane. So for that, I'm going to basically just be doing a bunch of selecting and a bunch of scaling here. So let's look at this. So it's about the length of the plane already, but you'll notice that it's maybe slopes in a bit on the front. So we're going to use the box select with B, select this front face, and S for scale, and just scale it down a bit, the nose of the plane. Let's use box select to select this ring, and either move here like this, or we can do GX to move it like this, move it forward a bit, make that nose a bit rounded. And then it's gradually kind of slopes down towards the tail. So I'm going to use my box select, grab the tail here, scale it down, box select, grab the next loop, scale it down, next loop, scale it down. I'm actually going to kind of prep here for the cockpit. I'm going to kind of box select and move them over here. And this one actually scale up a bit. This one about here. Yes. Back this one up a bit. Okay, so now it's looking a bit more like the shape of a plane body. Cool, it kind of looks like a carrot too, but yeah. Okay, so that's looking kind of like let me move this over here. Looking like the plane body, right? About the shape of it. Cool. All right. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to actually do something special that helps with 3D modeling called mirroring. So to do that, I'm going to look at this from the end. So to do that, you see this little gizmo here? Let me close this transform. This little gizmo here kind of shows your orientation. If I click on the, for example, X, it's going to like lock my view to perfectly flat on the with the x-axis coming into the camera. And the reason why I do this is because I want to select half of the model, not the center vertices, just the vertices on one side, and I want to delete them, delete key vertices. And the reason for that is because I want to actually mirror any changes I make on this side, do the exact same thing on the other side, and this will just speed up the modeling process because we won't have to do both sides. We can just focus on one side and it'll mirror to the other. So to do that, we want to click Tab to go out into object mode. So you shouldn't be able to see vertices anymore. It should say object mode in the top left here. And we want to go to the properties here and go to the modifiers, which is this wrench. And we're going to go add modifier. And it's under, what is it under here? Generate mirror. And you'll notice it just now, it kind of looks weird. It's like got it merging itself. That's because the axis is wrong. We want to mirror on the Y and uncheck the X. Now you'll notice that it looks like how it was before, but if we go back into edit mode with tab, you'll notice that vertices are only editable on one side, and if I edit a vertex on this side, it's also going to edit on the other side, which is awesome because that means we only have to focus on this side of the model. The other side of the model pretty much like automatically models itself, right? All right, so we just got to fix the ends here because right now they're open. If I go out of X-ray mode, you see they're open, so I'm just going to close them up. So to do that, I'm just holding shift, selecting all these vertices, and then we can click F on the keyboard, which fills with a face. So we're going to do the same thing for the other side here. F, fill with a face. And now we have our carrot, or plain body, and it's perfectly mirrored, so any changes we make on one side, we'll make on the other, which is going to be helpful for these next steps where we start making some more complicated things, like the tail. And for that, we are going to have to get into some more fancy tools here. So, the tail here. The tail is basically like, kind of like a thin, it gets thin, right? If we look at the top, it gets very thin. And then there's the two side wings. So we're going to focus on the part that goes up here and is thin first. So to do that, we're going to grab these two vertices here. Let's go into X-ray mode, by the way, X-ray mode. And we're just going to pull them in closer to the center here, and also pull them up so they're more flat here. Pull them down, this one down. Okay. And you'll notice that like it's kind of come in here, which is fine. We'll fix this to look a little better later. What we're going to do is we're going to use a new tool called the knife tool. So for that, knife K on your keyboard opens a knife tool. And what this lets you do is it lets you slice your model. So like if I do, you don't have to do this, I'm just going to show, but if I do this, what it's going to do is it's going to create a slice straight through the model like this, create a line, which is useful for what we're about to do. Is we want to make a line from this vertice, so mouse over this vertice with the knife tool, click, and then mouse over the other vertice down here with it. Make sure it's locked onto the vertice, so you see it turns. Ooh, it's a bit tricky. It turns that color when it's locked onto the vertice, kind of a yellowish green, and click again. And then you'll notice it still wants me to knife more, but I don't want to knife more, so I'm going to click enter on the keyboard to finish that cut. And now I have a line here between these two vertices, because now what I want to do is I want to extrude this face out to kind of make that tail shape. So for this, I don't think I've said this, but for this I want to change my select mode from vertice. Up here you can see the different select modes: vertice, edge. You can select edges to face because I want to select faces, and for face you click in the center of the face where these little dots are. See, I'm selecting all these faces. Oop, don't move any. So I'm going to select this face we just made, and I'm going to extrude this face with E on the keyboard. Extrude it, E, like that. And now it is extruded. It's kind of created a center face here, so I'm going to select this center face and delete it. Delete faces, because otherwise that would be inside the model and no good. And we're also we need to get this part of the tail going, so I'm going to extrude this upper face, select it, E to extrude, extrude up, maybe about that much. Again, I'm going to select that center face. Actually, you know what? I'm going to undo that. I need to extrude on the Z. Yeah, so when you extrude this one, make sure you click extrude and then Z twice to make sure it's extruding exactly up. See now, right now, these vertices are touching. If I didn't click Z twice, when I extrude, it's actually kind of going off on an angle. See how it's off on an angle? So again, extrude E, click Z twice. Now it's going to go straight up and down on the Z axis. I can click to finish the extrude, and then I can adjust it if it's not quite high enough. All right, so that's looking kind of like a tail of a plane. Cool. You can go back to vertice mode and start making it look a bit more like a tail. Bring in these vertices. The next thing, this is probably going to be the most challenging part, is these back tail wings. So you notice they're kind of about at the top of the plane here. So what I'm going to do here is we're going to bring this guy up a bit, in, this guy as well in a bit, this up. You'll notice that we're going to do a lot of this vertex tweaking, and yours won't look exactly like mine, which is fine. You'll have tons of time to just grab vertices, tweak their position. You can tweak a model forever until you get it in a position that you actually like it. Okay. So what I'm going to do here is we're going to do some raw vertex extrusion here. So this is literally like the most basic of extrusion you can do. So I'm going to grab my knife tool, knife, and I'm going to click somewhere about here on the side of the tail wing here, and then click somewhere about here, and click on this vertex again, and then click enter, and I just sliced it like that. Alright, now I'm going to go into face mode. I'm actually going to delete this face, delete faces, delete this face, delete faces, and I'm going to go back to vertex mode, and I'm going to extrude this vertice, so E to extrude on the Y, and this is extruding out like a line on the y-axis. I want a little farther because I want to line it up with this one here. And then I want to select this vertex and this vertex and click F to fill in the line there. And then I want to grab this vertex and extrude on the Z, extruding up. Okay, and then I can grab this vertex, fill in a face. Here I can extrude up Z, and I can grab this vertex, fill in this one, this one, this one, this one, fill in a whole face. Same here. Grab all these vertices, fill in the whole face. Grab all the vertices, fill in the whole face. Grab all the vertices here, fill in the whole face. All right, I'm gonna move this vertex in a bit. Hopefully you're able to find out. Again, that's probably the most complicated part of this. Is actually raw vertex editing, which you shouldn't have to do too often, but obviously is very powerful, as you saw there, because we could literally make our own shape completely, which again is the start of these tail wings here. All right, now I'm gonna go out of X-ray mode here. It's looking a bit weird down here. I'm just gonna see what I did in the past. So what I did actually is, I think I wanna bring this out like this. Hopefully you're able to do this. Yeah, do this with it. Grab the knife tool and do this. I actually kind of want to go like that. This guy here, yeah, this guy here needs to go like way up here. We're gonna grab the knife tool, cut between these two vertices. And we want to grab the knife tool and cut between those two vertices. Just trying to make this shape a little bit more natural. Again, make sure you move around your camera and look at it from multiple perspectives, because it changes definitely depending on how you look at it. Still looks a bit blocky, but actually I think the issue is I gotta move this up. So I'm looking at the reference here in the background. Move this up a bit. Yeah, that's looking better. We move this up as well. It's up. That's looking better. Again, I'm just I'm vertex tweaking here. Lots of vertex tweaking. This here is way too fat, way too thick. So I'm gonna move this up. Move these ones down. And make sure to pause the video here because I'm going a bit quick if you can't keep up. Okay, so this is about a good thickness. So I'm gonna grab this face here. Again, I went into face select mode, and I'm gonna extrude on the Y, and I'm gonna extrude about out what I think the wing size is. About that probably. Looks about good. I'm gonna just do some more vertex tweaking here, make it look a bit more like a wing. Maybe a bit thinner. Okay, I think we need the rudder at the back here. So I'm going to grab the knife tool. I'm going to cut a rudder here, kind of just eyeballing it. And we're going to grab these faces. We're going to extrude on the X. So make sure I click the X axis so it goes exactly straight out. Way too far, maybe about here. I'm going to go into X-ray mode because I think it made interfaces. It did. I'm going to grab those interfaces. Oh, not the outer face, the interface. See, I got the interface. Delete them, faces. And I'm going to make this look a bit more like flap or rudder. Bring it in like that. Too far out, I think. Right about there somewhere. Oop. That was really X-ray mode. Okay, there we go. That's looking pretty good for a tail, I think. Maybe this needs to come this way a bit more. you know, you could tweak vertices forever here. So at some point I gotta kind of stop and say that looks good enough for now. You can always come back, tweak it some more. Like this needs to come like this. You know, you could tweak forever, and you'll notice that your model looks really bad at the beginning, and as you tweak vertices, as you tweak edges and faces, it slowly you can make it look, you know, pretty good. At least for low poly modeling, which I'm more familiar with. I feel like this is too wide. And again, move your camera around, look at it from different perspectives, because you'll notice it looks, you know, a lot different depending on how you're looking at it. Okay, stop touching this tail. You guys can touch it as long as you want. Pause the video, touch it as long as you want. Actually, I really think this needs moved up like that. Okay, I'm gonna stop touching it now as I touch it more. Okay, next, wings. Yes, wings. Wings are pretty easy, which is good. Okay, so for the wings, I'm gonna come over here to the body of the plane, and I'm gonna grab, go into face select mode. I'm gonna grab these two faces. They're at the belly of the side here. If you look at the side of our reference here, you see the wings actually don't come from the center of the body. They come from the bottom of the body. So we're going to grab these two faces, which are closer to the bottom. Let's see here. Let's look at my reference. Sorry, drag it down a bit, and we're going to extrude. You'll see right now it's like going into the ground. It's kind of a, you know, it looks like something else. I don't know. So what we want to do is we want to extrude and click Y, so we lock it to our Y axis and extrude on the Y. And then we kind of just want to like extrude out to, you know, a good, whatever we think the good wingspan is, probably somewhere about there. Sure, I'm kind of looking at the reference here, trying to get a decent, you know, reference for how far out the wings need to be. The ends here look a bit weird, so I'm going to grab these top vertices, pull them back, and then now I'm kind of just going to do, you know, more vertex tweaking, make it feel like a wing. So if I want to move these vertices just on the Z and Y, or sorry, X and Y axes, I can click G, Shift, Z, and now only on the Z and Y are these. So if I look at it from the top, G, Shift, Z, you know, I can use this to kind of move it, or I can just use these. It's probably easier. Wings usually kind of slope back a bit. I'm kind of making a bit different wings than the reference here. That's okay. Go back a bit. Ease forward. Yes. I'm actually going to do a loop cut here. So for that, again, Control R, click, and then here I can actually slide it. I'm going to, I want these loops to be about vertically here, so I can do scale on the Y, or nope, scale, yeah, Y, and then I can kind of scale until they're about straight up and down with each other. And now I can move them. And the reason for this is I just want to scale on the X, kind of, scale X, kind of bring it in a bit. Here we go. Wings. Usually the wings also kind of maybe slope up a bit. And maybe these wings are also a bit too thick. So I'm going to grab all these vertices, not this one. Bring it down a bit. Grab these vertices, bring them up a bit. These vertices, bring them up a bit. Just keep vertex tweaking, you know, until it looks like something that you're happy with. That still looks a bit weird. What looks so weird about this? I think this needs to come back a bit. This maybe also needs to come back a bit. Yeah. I think they're maybe not long enough to. Yeah, there we go. That's looking pretty good there now. I'm looking at this. Got my reference. Maybe this forward a bit. There we go. Okay, I guess again, stop touching it. You know, be happy with it for now. Again, you can tweak for as long as you want until it looks like something you're happy with. I'm noticing my body is maybe a bit too wide, so I'm going to grab all the vertices here on the side here. Make sure I have all of them, and just kind of bring it in a little bit thinner. Yeah, again, you can tweak however you want. Yeah, and maybe move the body down a bit here. Means I gotta move the tail down a bit. Cool. Okay. Okay, I think that looks pretty good for the wings. Next is the cockpit. So for the cockpit, what we're gonna do is we're gonna grab these two upper faces here. And we are going to extrude them. How are we going to do this? Yeah, extrude on the Z. So I'm click Z twice. So E for extrude and then Z twice. Extrude it up like this. And then I'm going to kind of just mold this into a bit more of a cockpit shape. So I scale on the X a bit. Yeah, down a bit. Grab these three vertices, move them in, down, this, yeah, move this back a bit, in a bit, move these ends in a bit. Can actually move this in even more here. Again, vertex tweaking, tweak till it looks like something you're happy with. Oops, out of X-ray mode. What I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to do a loop cut, so Control R, and I'm just going to do a loop cut here, so that there's this kind of ring around the cockpit, which we're going to use when texturing it. I'm going to do this ring here. Move these in some more. Yeah, so feel free to tweak your cockpit until it looks something like this, or something how you think it looks good. But I think that's good enough for me. It's really starting to look like a plane. Like this looks like a plane. If this pops up on your screen, you think plane now, which is good. It means the model is coming along good. Next, propeller. Okay, this is going to be a bit tricky, but we'll get through this. Okay, so we're gonna make like first of all, I think I need to just go into X-ray mode. I think I just need to adjust the shape here a bit. Move this down a bit. Honestly, move this entire cockpit down a bit. Okay, stop adjusting. Okay, adjust forever. Move this up a bit. Okay, so now let's go into face mode. Grab this front face and let's see if I remember how to do this. We need to do something special here. So we need to go to transform pivot, which is this one up here, these two circles with the little circle in the middle. And we need to change it to 3D cursor. Now, hopefully your 3D cursor is centered. If it's not, you need to do center a cursor and frame all. If it's not centered, if you accidentally click somewhere. But hopefully it's centered. And what this has done is it's changed our transform to be based on where the 3D cursor is. And the reason for doing that is because of what we're about to do here. Is because we want to scale this nose in on itself based on where the 3D cursor is. Because if we didn't do this, if we were just on the median point and we scaled, you'll see it's like separating the mirror. So that's why we're putting it in this special mode, scale Shift X. Now it's kind of scaling, how we want it to scale without ripping the mirroring. Because what we want to do is we want to create a bit of a propeller nub here. So what I'm doing, I'm going to extrude on the extrude and just immediately click and then scale Shift X, scale it down in. So I kind of have this piece here, and then I'm going to extrude out like a nub here where the propeller is going to kind of sit, and then scale Shift X. Now we have like our little propeller nub that our propeller is going to spin around, right? And again, we got to remove some of these interior faces, delete face. There's actually a face there, delete that face. Cool. If you can't figure out how to delete interfaces, it's not the end of the world, but clean up the model, you should delete them. Okay, so now we have our propeller nub here. Now we want to change the transform pivot point back to median point, because we don't want it on that for doing regular stuff. What we need to do now is in the outliner window here, we want to rename this cylinder to the fighter. Okay, so that's this object. If we go to object mode here, this whole thing now is the object fighter. And the reason for that is because we want to make sure we're in object mode. We want to make another object for the propeller, because when we bring this into a game engine like Unity, we want to be able to rotate the propeller free from the plain body, right? So that's why we're going to make it a new object. So now we're in object mode, and we're going to do add mesh cylinder again, and this time in the add cylinder window here in the bottom left, for vertices we want 3, because we're really not making a cylinder here. We're making a I forget geometry. What is this shape called? Whatever the shape's called, the triangular prism or something. We're making a triangular prism because we're going to extrude the propeller from each one of these faces. A 3-blade propeller. Now we're going to basically move this in object mode to the center of our nub here. Cool. And then we're going to go into edit mode with this new cylinder selected. So let's do tab and to go into edit mode, and we're going to, let's see, we got to rotate this on the Y, rotate Y 90. Okay, so now it's this way. We're gonna scale it down, scale on the X. We're gonna scale it so this entire thing is basically hidden by the propeller nub. So we look at it from the X side here. We're gonna hide it by the propeller nub, and now what we want to do is we want to extrude out, scale it a bit up on the X. We want to extrude out from each one of these faces, basically the propeller blades, right? So I've selected all these faces, holding Shift, select, and now what do we want to do? We want to do space extrude. So there's a lot of extrude options here, but the one we want is we want to extrude individual faces. Okay, and then you'll notice now it's extruding outwards as individual faces. Okay, so now we've got a really thick propeller here, so we should fix that. We got to do some scaling here. So for that, let's grab these interior ones, and I think we can just scale this on Shift X. That's going to scale down the interior here. And if we grab all these faces here, or edges, and we scale Shift X as well, no, that's not what we want. Grab all these faces. Let's change the transform pivot point to individual origins. Yeah, that's what we want. Now scale down. So now it's scaling based on each individual face instead of the center of it. And now that's looking a lot more like a propeller, right? Scale down a bit more. Get out of wireframe mode. Yeah, there we go. Let's maybe scale. Let me scale this up a bit more. That's looking decent. Yeah, if we think the propellers aren't long enough, we can select them again. Change it back to medium point and just scale to scale them out more. If they're not thick enough, you can select all of them with A and scale on the X. Yeah, again, just vertex tweaking until it looks decent. I think that looks decent. Not perfect, but good enough. Especially when we do what we're going to do next, which is shading. Okay. So right now, our model looks, if you look at like here in like the light mode, our model looks very, very blocky and sharp edges. That's because it's, in a low poly art style where all the faces are rendering with flat shading, and the lighting bounces off of it perfectly, and it appears, low poly looking. It's kind of an art style. But what I kind of wanted to do with this is show how to make more of a toon looking art style, where instead the light kind of looks more like real life, where it's nice and smooth around all the edges. So to do that is we can click space and search shade smooth. Oh, you have to have it selected, sorry. So with the fighter selected and the propeller selected, actually for the propeller we never renamed it, so let's rename it fighter propeller. Okay. Okay, so now with the plain main fighter selected, space, shade smooth, and now you'll notice that it's kind of like all rounded and more toon looking. We can do the same thing with the propeller, shade smooth, and that's looking like already like a lot less, well, a lot less low poly, a lot less cheap block looking. Yeah, but some edges we might want sharp. Like I'm thinking like the ones around the cockpit here, we maybe want to mark them sharp. So for that, what we're going to do is we're going to go to properties with the body selected here. We're going to go to, which one is it here? Data, normals. We're going to check this auto smooth box and change it to 100 degrees. And now what we're going to do is we're going to select these edges that we want to make sharp. And we're going to, with them selected, click space, mark sharp. And you'll see them come up blue here. And now if I go out of that mode, you'll see now these edges appear sharp. See here? I'm going to do the same thing with, for example, where the rudder attaches to the main tail here. So I'm going to select these two edges, mark sharp. And now you can see it looks a lot, should look a lot sharper in that edge there. Maybe I need these ones too. Anyways, you can mess with it. You can not mark it sharp if you don't like the look. You can, select other ones and mark them sharp if you think, it helps with the look. Oh, totally up to you. You're playing your look. All right, so this is looking good for the modeling. It looks, it looks complete to me pretty much. So now we're going to go into the color texturing. We're going to be using a method that is good for low poly and toon style models with solid flat colors, called color palette coloring. And essentially what it does is it uses a color texture with a bunch of different colors, and I'll show you. Much easier to show you to explain. And what it does is it allows the GPU to render it a lot better because you only have a single material and it's using UVs to know what color to render on each face. So it's definitely a good way of doing it if you're making something like a video game where you want as many frames as possible. So for this, we're going to need to set our viewport shading mode to this one here, which is the uh, material one. There's render, material, kind of gray box modeling, and wireframe. It looks cool in wireframe. So we're going to send it to the material one because we want to actually be able to see our materials. That's the second from the right. And now we are going to go to our properties here with the body selected, and we're going to go to the material tab, and we're going to create a new material, and we're going to double click on it and name it fighter body. And right now it's just white. So what we need to do here is we need to actually set up this material. So for that, I'm in the very top left here. Hopefully you can see my mouse. I'm going to click and drag open a new window here on the side. You see it's literally just duplicating the same window. But what we're going to do is we're going to change this window at the top left here, editor type, to the shader editor. And you'll see this is the, you see here, cylinder fighter body material we just made. You can select the material up here. So with the fighter body material, you see right now it's just white. We can change it to any color. Woo. But what we want to do, I want to set this back to white, perfectly white. What we want to do is we actually want to bring in a texture and material this plane based on a texture. So for that, we want to go to add in the top here, input, where is it here? Oh no, add, not input, add texture, image texture. And you see it brings in a node here. If you're familiar with like node editors for shaders, this is basically one of those. But if you're not, we're just going to connect things here. So we're going to connect color, click and drag to base color. And now it's actually taking the color of this image texture and it's going to control the color of our material. And right now it's just black because we have no texture. So what we're going to do is we're going to open a texture. And I will, you'll either have to make this texture yourself in any paint software. It should be pretty easy. It's just a, you'll see in a minute here, it's just, fighter red is the one we want here. It's just a grid of colors. I'll show it here in a minute. So we have that imported. Now we want to change our editor type here from shader editor to UV editor. Now this is the UV image, and it's blank right now because we got to actually open it. Find that, click this, find that fighter red PNG. Here, see, this is the color texture. So you can just create this in any paint software. It's literally just colors in a checkerboard pattern. You can literally make it like 4 pixels by 4 pixels, but this is more like 720 by 720. So there's a bunch of pixels per color. And basically, you would put each square a color that you want to use on your model, and then you can just edit it anytime with any paint software like Paint or GIMP or Photoshop. So now what we're going to do is we're going to click on our plane here, and we're going to go into edit mode. And we're going to select all the faces with A. You see now here's all our faces showed up in the UV editor. So essentially it's all the faces of the model but flattened out, which is the UVs. What we're going to do is we're just going to make this look a bit better. So we're going to go to UV at the top here. And we're going to do Smart UV Project. Just click OK. And you'll see now it's kind of got the UVs in better positions here. Better shapes, not stretched or anything. Yeah, so with everything selected here on the right, on the left here, you can also select everything, and you can do things like move them around with a G, scale them, rotate them. You shouldn't really ever have to rotate them for this type of coloring. but scale and moving is probably what you'll need. So what you'll want to do is you want to scale it down into the size of 1 cube. And then basically now you'll see everything's in this red color. So right now everything's red. You can make it all gray, dark gray, black, white, pure black. And again, I'm just using G here to move it around. So we're going to start with everything in this lighter red because for the most part we want most things to be red. And then what you want to do is in face select mode on the right, because we want to color based on faces for the most part. In face select mode, you basically can just go and select the faces that you want to modify the color of. So for example, I want to modify these faces here to be this, more glass color. I want to modify all of these. Again, I'm just selecting all these faces to be, a gray border. I want to modify all these faces here to be gray for the nub. Maybe I want to make my tail here a darker red. Cool. Maybe I want to make kind of the belly of the plane. Grab the belly of the plane, make it a darker red. And yeah, so you can just, click around, make any colors you want. Maybe I want to add some stripes to my plane, so I'm going to Control R to add a loop cut here. And I'm going to grab all these, and you'll notice they're actually in 2 different colors, so I'll have to use the box select here, again B, bring them all into 1 cube, box select them again, move them into a white color. Got a stripe there on the back. Maybe I want to add stripes to my wing. Again, I'm just loop cutting with Control R. Just want to make it straight here, so I'm going to grab these vertices. I'm going a bit quick here, but hopefully you can. Hopefully you're at the point where you can follow along. Again, hotkeys are in the bottom left. Got it in a stripe kind of orientation. Grab it, move all these to the white. There you go. Now I got a stripe on my plane on the tail and on the wing. Cool. Now we need to do the same thing for the propeller here because it's still pure white. For that, we should just be able to grab the propeller. Again, I switched to object mode. Sorry. Make sure you're in object mode. Select the propeller. Go to the material tab in the properties. Select the fighter body material. Again, now in edit mode, everything's selected. UV, smart UV project. Okay. Over here, scale it down to 1 cube. Move it to the color. We're going, a nice black for the propeller. Cool. All right. So yeah, there's our model for the most part. Maybe the one thing it's missing is some guns, because we're going to use this model in a video game in the future, so I want to add some guns to it. So for that, I just selected my plane body. I'm going to move this over out of the way. I am in edit mode, and I'm just going to do add cube. Well, you'll see it's got the crazy checkerboard color. I'm just going to do this pretty quick, but I'm going to add a cube here. I'm going to kind of drag it over to where I want the guns, maybe right about here. Scale Shift X. Boop. Go in X-ray mode so I can see it inside the plane. Here. I'm going to extrude, scale down, extrude. Undo that. Extrude, scale down more. Extrude. There, that looks kind of like a gun, right? Scale it down maybe a bit. Put it in the plane. Maybe bring out these faces a bit. I'm going to fix the color now, so I'm going to click, oh, I never talked about this, L. If you click L on the keyboard, it'll only select, because you'll notice that this here is actually like separate from this part of the mesh, but they're still the same object because we're in edit mode, right? But if you use L, it'll only select, one kind of mesh. Shift L to unselect, L to select. So I can do that to just select, because normally you'd use A, right? But because I only want to select the gun right now. I can mouse over the gun, click L, it only selects the gun part of the mesh. And if I bring this over here, I'm going to go UV, Smart UV Project, okay. Grab all these with A, scale them down to 1 cube, put them into the kind of black or dark gray color. Now we got guns. I'm also noticing that we need to reshade smooth. There we go. Now the guns are also smooth. Oh, what did I do with the guns here? I got some extra vertices somehow. Nice. How did I manage that? Beat vertices. See, this starts to happen when you go a little bit too fast. And fix this vertice. I don't know where this vertice came from. I can do dissolve vertices. Ugh. I don't know what happened there. Anyways, hopefully that didn't happen to you. Space shade smooth. It's looking decent. Guns are kind of a weird shape, so. Do these stay the same? Normal is auto smooth. You might have to return on auto smooth when you shade smooth again in order to get those sharp edges. And yeah, there is our plane. Oh boy, what is going on with the gun here? It is not looking good. Delete vertices. Oh, I see. There's like 2 sets of vertices here. 2 sets of vertices are sometimes annoying. Yeah, there's still 2 sets of vertices there too. Alright. Hopefully that doesn't happen to you. And I'm going to fix it now. Extrude on the X. There we go. Okay. Look good over there. Look good over here. Okay, cool. Final step is exporting. Okay. So for that, we want to select everything that we want to export. And actually, before we do that, I just want to fix the position of the plane here. Because this right here, this orange dot, is the center point of the model. So I want to actually move this up so that the center point is, you know, somewhere about the bottom of the plane where the wings are. And you'll notice the propeller didn't move with it. So if I go into X mode here, I also need to move the propeller up to the center. Again, I moved the plane up in edit mode, but the propeller I moved up in object mode because we want the propeller to rotate around, you know, the x-axis like this. Okay, cool. I might also want to move it back so that it's in the center of the cockpit, and move this back again in object mode for the propeller, so it's in the center of the nub again. There we go. So this is much better for game engines because the origin's about there for the plane. Origin is right in the center for the propeller. Okay. So now exporting. So I'm going to select the plane body and shift select the propeller again in object mode. And we're going to go to File in the top left. File, Export, FBX. Export, FBX. All right. And I'm just going to keep it named GDYU workshop.fbx. But you would name it like fighter plane or something. You see World War II planes.fbx, previous name. And there's some options that we want to select here. Might depend on what engine you're importing this into or what you're using the model for, but for Unity, which I'm going to use this model in, I want to have the selected objects selected. So only the objects I have selected will be exported, which is fighter and fighter propeller, because I don't want the light, the empty image we brought in, or the camera. And the other one is this apply transform, which is, you see it it's experimental, but what it does, I think, is it helps with the axes issues, because in Blender, Z is the up and down axes, but in Unity, Y is the up and down axes. So I think this just adds some extra data to the file, which helps Unity understand that the axes are flipped. So I always select that with my modeling workflow. So with those two selected, named, folder where you want to export, click Export FBX, and we're done. Awesome. You just created your first model in Blender and successfully exported it for a game engine or whatever you want to use it for. All right, that is the end of the workshop. Thanks so much for watching. Hopefully you're able to follow along. Yeah, and hopefully your plane looks something like this. Yeah, awesome.